Thank you for joining us on Beyond Markets. I'm Wole Famriwa, standing in for Godfrey Mutizwa. We start by looking at the state of ICT infrastructure in Africa's largest economy, Nigeria. And later we discuss the outlook for private equity investments in Africa in the near future. You can join the conversation by using the hashtag Beyond Markets. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Wole Famriwa. You can follow Godfrey at G Mutizwa. Nigeria's ICT sector attracted about $6 billion from foreign direct investments in the past 3 years. That's according to the country's Minister of Communications Technology. And Ayotunde Coker, Managing Director at RAC Center, joins me now to share some insight on the state of ICT infrastructure in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Ayotunde, for joining me today. So let's talk about ICT in Nigeria. Quite a few, I think, very important achievements here. So we've deregulated telecom to a large extent, privatized the sector, and now what I think is even more interesting is that ICT now accounts for about 10% of GDP, so it's really getting that attention that it deserves. But overall, what would be your impression of the state of ICT in Nigeria right now?
Significant progress has been made in the last sort of few years, in the last 5 years or so, in the establishment of core technology, broadband technology, and so on, and the penetration of both mobile telephony and other broadband communications. Despite some of the challenges, I think some great work's been done by the industry. There's still a lot more to be done. I think the data shows that you don't get any industrialized country being successful without successful core infrastructure. So we have to do that in Nigeria if we're going to realize the potential of what is Nigeria, Africa's largest economy.
Sure. Okay, but let's talk about this trend we're seeing in terms of building Nigeria's digital economy. We're seeing quite a few more companies getting involved in e-commerce, for instance. Broadband is improving, the penetration is increasing. But your overall impression of that element in terms of making the progress we're seeing in ICT part of the economy. Now we're seeing it at 10% of GDP, but a lot of people will argue that it can be a lot bigger.
Yeah, it can be a lot bigger, and a lot of the economy actually can be much better enabled through technology.
Sure.
You find that although a lot of progress has been made, a lot more needs to be done. If you look at some of the challenges faced by some of the telcos, if you speak to them, they talk about the challenges of powering their masts. A lot of the masts actually now shared services across telcos, but nevertheless those challenges remain. Penetration out of the business centers in the country into the rest of the country, not just the last mile in the cities, but penetration to the rest of the country is still a challenge. And there's some things that have been looked at and resolved by government in terms of right of way. The minister talks about the pay once approach. You don't pay different tiers of government, and you have to get the agreements in place to enable the expansion of broadband technology. Broadband is not just fiber. There are different technologies that deliver broadband to the end point, either to businesses or customers. However, even to private customers, the retail customers, there's increasing broadband penetration, but a lot of it is still very much in the sort of the commercial centers of the country.
And I think that is a big challenge, getting ICT, the improvement we've seen in ICT across the country, and in trying to get that going. Your thoughts about maybe the smart thinking around that? Do you think legislation, for instance, needs to change? Do you think government needs to do a little more in terms of bringing more private sector investments into the areas that it's more needed?
Yes, like a lot of areas in the economy, I think creating the right operating environment, a stable operating environment, is very important. Creating an environment where foreign investors are confident and comfortable with investing in technology over here. Once the right environment is created and the right legislative framework, the private sector will drive the implementation and expansion of core ICT in the country. I mean, we have 180 million people or so. That's a significant population and a significant opportunity, especially since Nigeria got defined as, declared as the largest economy. There's been significantly improved, increased interest. That I've observed even in, sort of businesses I've run in the country.
No question, and everyone expected that when it was declared. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that need to change. For instance, if I want to take this to the educational institutions now, how they need to plug into the changes that we're seeing. Looking at the curriculum of the universities, for instance, do you think there's not enough emphasis being placed on ICT?
Creating the right capacity development and competency development is important, right through all of the levels of academia. Even at the primary level, secondary level, and enhancing that at the tertiary level. The quality of skill sets, investment in those skill sets is paramount. It's not just a matter of investing in the core infrastructure. Of course, if you don't have that, then but without the right people, without the right competencies, without the right frameworks of developing the people, then you won't really realize the opportunity. Of course, we have to combine local talent with global talent. It's a global-local challenge, but we have to have our local competencies developed.
Sure. Let's talk about this concept of making Nigeria a bit of a hub in West Africa. And many people have spoken to suggest that we're perfectly positioned to really take advantage of the kind of things India is doing for countries as far as countries in Europe or even America. So your thoughts about the opportunity for Nigeria to be a hub in West Africa?
Our location is excellent. We're bang between the Southern Africa area and Europe. Bang in between, the same benefits London has in between the US and Asia. So as far as Africa is concerned, Nigeria is perfectly positioned. We also have high capacity undersea cables that allows businesses based in Africa to locate in Nigeria and have access to other countries they operate in. We're also very well positioned for aviation. Nigeria it really could be an aviation hub. And of course, a lot of these things get enabled by technology. But our position and some of the underlying infrastructure that we have puts us in a very good position for us to play that role in being the hub and the heart of Africa.
Right, but how quickly can we take advantage of that positioning? It's all theory, if you like, potential. We hear that word a lot in Nigeria. So how do we take advantage of this opportunity? Does it start with the educational institutions? Where do you think the emphasis needs to be placed now?
We've talked about education. Without core competencies, we won't realize the benefits. The penetration of connectivity is important, and also you won't find any industrialized economy without co-location, IT co-location facilities in data centers. Data centers are where you store your IT equipment. They have to be reliable. They have to be connected to. That is increasing now in Nigeria. And when we know if you don't have those things, you cannot have a successful industrialized economy. The data that comes out of the US and Europe shows that. But we also see a potential for growth in this area. With attracting the investment, foreign direct investments, as I've talked about, to build out the core infrastructure, that better positions Nigeria to actually thrive as far as the technology business is concerned.
What's your view on how close we are to maybe delivering an Alibaba type company? We have the market clearly, population, the demand is there, and we're seeing this proliferation of e-commerce now getting going, but how close are we to that in your view?
Well, we've got Jumia, we've got OLX, Lamudi, Carmudi, we've got Konga. These are very innovative businesses, retail businesses, and given our population, the potential for us to have a Nigeria Alibaba, it would be fantastic, and great to see one of those companies emerge. In terms of retail uptake, even if you look at the banks, The banks now significantly depend on technology. If it's card usage for electronic transactions, mobile telephony, mobile payments, and so on. And the population is now really quite savvy. If the technology doesn't work for a bank, people will move. They'll move to another bank where they know the technology works. Even if their salary gets paid, and then there'll be a sweep to move the salary to another bank. The online companies, if the customer experience of using their online portals is slow, it doesn't work, and so on, they move very. And these companies know that, So having the underlying technology is important. And then we can actually talk about us taking on the Alibabas of this world, and some of the global banks.
Well, I do get a sense of still quite a few years away from achieving that. But let's now talk about the government support. We're seeing some trends emerging now where the government is setting up these things like idea hubs, where they are really supporting ICT entrepreneurs. How critical is that in your view in terms of getting things going?
It is. It gives the global awareness about the potential for technology in Nigeria. Demo Africa was held in Nigeria last year.
Right.
Very successful. Yeah. The world saw that Nigeria could actually be world class in delivering something that's successful. Totally championed by the minister. We now have Demo. We have the Idea Hub. This is now bringing together the key players in the industry to address the right issues, not just on core infrastructure, but how we can actually enhance Nigerian software development, building competency and capacity. And we need things like that to actually put Nigeria on the map globally, where we'll be exporting IT just like other countries like India, right, for instance.
I have heard the minister talk about software being perhaps a very important element in what they're trying to do with ICT. Do you agree that there's a huge opportunity in terms of software development in this country, given the culture where Nigeria just tends to prefer to export these things?
Actually, when you look at something like the Demo Africa, Nigeria showed up very well with respect to the number of people that the software developers that were celebrated. Okay, so we have the what I call the intrinsic, the competency there. We need to unlock it, right. And with some of the things that we're seeing in place now with Demo Africa and the Idea Hub, and also other mentoring initiatives going on. The leadership in the technology industry, I would say, it's looking at how we can enhance the capability to put Nigeria on the map, not just from a technology point of view, but to deliver the technology that companies in Nigeria can leverage in being world-class in what they do.
Right. Right. Ayotunde, thank you so much. Thank you very much for joining us. Ayotunde Coker, Managing Director at the RAC Center, giving us some perspective on the development of ICT over here in Nigeria. After the break, we discuss what will drive private equity investments in Africa.